Good time.
Oh, I was like, your recording notification popped up and scared the hell out of me.
It only does
It's
that
official.
on Mac for some reason. I don't know why.
Oh, well, yeah, because why else do we care about security?
Don't say anything Big Brother would hear.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm on enough lists already. It doesn't matter.
If you want to get paranoid, listen to a podcast with Edward Snowden and then just kind of sit there and stare at your phone for a minute and wonder, do I really need this?
Well, I've gotten a bunch of comments recently that say I look exactly like the guy,
So I could see it.
which is really funny, especially when I shave, because I hate, ever since I started the fitness business, having long hair is like gets in the way. I just need it fast and efficient, and this works.
Gonna throw that in the title. That'll be the title. Wish.com Edward Snowden.
It's been that and Mark Zuckerberg, discount Mark Zuckerberg.
When you got to go to Walmart instead of Target.
Yeah, exactly.
But I suppose let's get started here. Ashton,
Yeah.
welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
And I don't suppose you'd mind just kind of introducing yourself to folks that don't know you or Freedom Fitness Equipment.
Absolutely. So my name is Ashton Ferrazzo. I'm here in Charlotte, North Carolina. I am the owner of Freedom Fitness Equipment and host of the Freedom Cast podcast. And how that got started is a really long story, but the short of it is that I got into fitness and fitness equipment the long way around after about 8 years in the 9-to-5 grind and working in financial services. I won't name the company because I think I've got about half a dozen NDAs with them, but yeah, I came out of that absolutely hating my life. That wasn't the case when I first joined, but slowly transitioned into started in IT, went to the business side, realized it was all terrible. And when the pandemic hit, started selling fitness equipment out of my backyard. That blossomed into something that I'll call an empire, but it's not really an empire yet. But I hope to be one day. And thus Freedom Fitness Equipment. And so now we serve the greater Charlotte Metro, and we've got distribution nationally, which is great because we got freight all over the world. So,
And I listened to a few of your episodes of your show. And on the first one, you talked about, if you don't mind retelling the story, because it sounded like you fought tooth and nail to get the wrong position in the company.
yes. Yes. No, that is a great way of describing it. So I was on, are either of you guys in IT or familiar with IT? And I said Sherwin-Williams, but
No, I sell paint and paint accessories. I become Hank Hill.
I work and run restaurants, but being a photographer for a lot of years, I'm fairly tech savvy,
Okay.
but nowhere near like IT level.
So I had a business background, so I wasn't. You might say I wasn't exact. I was more on the business side of IT, but we were always running into the team that I was first put into a rotational program within IT. I loved that. I was doing content management, and I was actually developing pieces of the website for our organization that you could actually see on the public web, which is cool because I'd push out a page. Hey, there it is. That kind of withered and died on the vine when I transitioned into this other team, which I did enjoy for a while, but it was client facing. And if you know anything about client facing or customer facing roles, so customer service of any type, you are constantly, and I do mean constantly, being screamed at. And it doesn't matter what you do or how you do it, IT is always the problem. And for good and bad reasons, right? I mean, you've got sometimes the infrastructure is bad, and that's because IT built it the wrong way or developed it the wrong way. But sometimes it's a business requirement that came down that was absolute garbage. So I thought that I could change things being on the IT side, because I could take the business knowledge that I had from my schooling background and the IT tech savvy and bridge the gap while talking to clients about what the issues were. And we solved quite a few problems for clients where our infrastructure and our platform wasn't great, and we patched it up. But that was the problem, is we patched it up. We put Band-Aids and glue on something that should have been ironclad, basically. So you're building a bridge with toothpicks, and you really should be building it with steel beams. So I eventually decided, oh, hey, I want to be in product management. Product management for me was like, oh, this big strategic role that I can be on in the business and actually impact something, because I thought, ooh, strategy. Well, sure enough, I go over to the business, and sure as heck, nothing changes. Because what I realized is they have the same problems over there that they did in IT. They still don't like IT. And all of the same issues that we had developing as the business now are still issues. Like that doesn't, your infrastructure is crap, your development process is crap. Like that's not going to change. And you have a uncanny ability to just not say no to the customer. When you can't say no to somebody, that's when you lose all credibility in my eyes. Like something physically cannot be done. Or if you do this thing, you are guaranteeing a series of problems in perpetuity. And so we would say, oh yeah, sign me up. And I was like, nah, I'm good. So they offered us a package to a severance package to there was multiple rounds of the severance package to leave the organization, and we had a deadline. So at the time, obviously I was very unhappy, but I was like, what would we do? And so I was talking to my wife and I go, this fitness thing might work out, right? Because I had bought and sold a Titan Fitness T3 power rack and had then bought some plates and then bought more equipment and sold it over and over and over again and almost doubled my money every single time. So I'm like, there might be something to this. So we go, she has been for years. She was always like, you need to change jobs. You need to do something else. I don't care what, I care what it is, but you need to get out of here. And her dad's an entrepreneur, so she already has the gene. And I was thinking, man, it would be awesome to start my own company. I've been wanting to do this for a long time, even before working in financial services, though. I think my grandpa probably influenced some of that. Anyway, back to the story. So my wife is saying you should move. My grandpa in the back of my head is saying you should move. And so we do a test run. So we do a test run for a few months. It was probably 3 or 6 months where we said, if we can flip enough to essentially replace our income or get close, we'll jump ship. Sure enough, I think within 3 months we had basically replaced the income. And yes, it's a pandemic. Yes, that is an unusual circumstance. But if you know anything about fitness equipment, it's not that hard if you're smart about your purchase decision to do that. You've got to know what you're looking for, but you can make it happen. And especially if you can ship nationally and get wider distribution than just like, say, the local Charlotte area, you can do very well. So that was the trick. We figured that out. I figured out freight. And we took the package and ran. And I'd say I haven't looked back. I mean, there've probably been a couple of instances where I'm like, hey, that salary would have been nice. The benefits would have been nice. But right now, I love the control. I love doing everything on the business side from a marketing creativity standpoint that I was never allowed to do before. And I'm responsible for the business, win or lose. So that's scary, but it's also awesome. So anyway, that's the long version.
Did you have the backup plan? Did you have a company that, maybe I want to go work for A, B, or C if this fails? Or did you just burn the ships and keep moving forward?
That's a really interesting question. So I've been applying for many, many months to different organizations. And I think looking back, I now realize I wasn't actually passionate about the role I was in. So I was failing those interviews like all over the place. I was also in a position that wasn't truly product management. It was something else, but it wasn't product management. It was a piece of it. So the resume doesn't really reflect that, but I wasn't really passionate about it in the end, is what I realized. So the backup plan going into this was, if this falls flat on its face, I can always go back into financial services. The backup plan now is, if this falls flat on its face, I've got 100 different connections within fitness. I'm going to fitness and I'm there for the rest of my life. I am not going back. I'll become a trainer. I'll work at a gym. I'll own a gym. I will not go back to financial services ever. And that switch happened after I had started the podcast, started talking to other business owners, really getting some of a reputation. And that plan B has kind of developed over time, but I really keep that pretty far away in my head, because my position on that is if you have a lock solid plan B, you're probably not going to do very well with your plan A, because that's always going to be in the back of your mind. I could jump ship and it'd be fine. So I've tried to keep that as far away from my mind as possible and just focused on the business and how we're doing there.
So, and you mentioned your wife kind of helped you
Mhm.
push you over into this side of it, or at least into a different field. Did she have any reservations about you starting the business or starting going into the, the fitness equipment in particular?
Yeah, not really. So I had been lifting for a long time. I started out in CrossFit, moved into weightlifting, did 5x5s, and then just recently more powerlifting. And she's always been into being active and fitness and exercise in general. So it was a pretty natural fit. I was lifting with a buddy of mine one time and I was like, if I were to do something within the space, what do you think would be, or if, I don't know, if I were to do something from an entrepreneurial standpoint, what do you think? And he named off like fitness equipment right off the bat. So um between, just some of the folks that I bounce this off and her, it really wasn't that scary. She didn't really have any reservations. And the funny thing was, even today, she is way more confident in the business than I am. I am always skeptical about the like day-to-day success of the business. Like I'll have a bad sales day and I'll be depressed and she'll be like, it's fine. And I'll be like, but I didn't make any money. And she'll be like, so, so she's been hugely encouraging in that regard. And especially starting out, that was big. I remember I think I told this in the episode, that I was sitting there. I was doing my first big extraction from a warehouse. There's another story to that, by the way. And we are taking out probably 3,000 square feet of fitness equipment stacked to the ceiling. And I am having an internal panic attack. And I am thinking, I can't do this. There's no effing way. I'm not capable. This is way too much. It's not gonna be able to fit in the warehouse. What are we gonna do? Oh my gosh, life is falling apart. And then I got home, that night, and I'm talking to her about it. And she's like, well, everything's gonna be fine. And you made it. And like, I think this is awesome. Like, you're so much happier, even with this breakdown, like you're so much happier. You're just a different person and you love doing this. Why would you do anything else? So we prayed about it and just talked about it a lot. And like, I haven't really felt that way again, honestly, because she's been there and I'm firmly convinced without my wife, uh, there's no way in heck I would have been successful. I mean, this is just, it's a no-go from the beginning. If she had said, no, you need to keep your corporate job, I would still be working in finance because she knows me better than I know myself. And honestly, if that had been her opinion, that probably would have been the way to go. And I wouldn't be saying what I'm saying now just because all the frustration I had, maybe it could have been resolved with a different company, but she didn't. She knew me and she knew where I wanted to go. And she was like, yeah, no, this all checks out. And I'm with you 100% of the way. So that's been just a huge blessing. And I married an awesome wife and into an awesome family. The fact that her dad's an entrepreneur too really, I think, plays a huge role in that.
Kind of go to him and get a little mentorship there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's always doing something. He's running some trade magazine marketing company and also doing like two other side businesses that are making over six figures. I mean, it's crazy. Like the guy is the stereotypical entrepreneur, but wildly successful.
So why get into the equipment side of the industry? I mean, it seems like now that everybody that has a couple thousand followers now has their own t-shirt line. Ain't much there. Or, and which is how I originally got started. This originally was not supposed to be a podcast, and that came a couple years down the road after some mixed results with the t-shirt line.
Mm-hmm.
But and I looked at, I tried to buy some plates and stuff for myself because I wanted to get my own little home set up. But the cost, it seems like the overhead is much higher than, t-shirts. That's why I went with the t-shirt route initially.
Yep. So I actually did some of the same thing. So when we were first starting out, I made probably the worst decision of my life and decided, to kind of get the word out there and maybe do some giveaways, but also generate a little bit of revenue. hey, let's print some t-shirts. So I had our Freedom Fitness Equipment logo. I had, it's this, by the way, these are still in our store. So a gray t-shirt with our white logo. I've got one with kind of a half skeleton, half full eagle that says freedom, never say die. And then I have one with a skeleton head, big old mustache, says death curls. I sold that many for 3 months. I sold that many. And I realized the apparel industry it's in, like, you can get into it in fitness. If you aren't already big, oh my gosh, you have to grind. And I'm talking grind. It's not the kind of grind people think. It's, if you're not a fitness influencer and have millions of followers already, or have won the Olympia like Daniel and Bailey, or just breaking multiple records and happen to have merch out after a while, getting started is unbelievably difficult. That market is so saturated. So one of the things I was looking for when I started the business was, is this a good opportunity to begin with? Like, is fitness equipment even worth it? So I'd done my research initially with guys like I Sell Fitness in New Jersey. Actually called Rob, who's the owner up there, and asked him about like he did an AMA on Reddit, and I asked him about the trucks that he was using back in the day, because I was interested in starting that. And I also looked at, there's the used gym store in Hickory here, Carolina Fitness Equipment. And there's one other gentleman I think I was modeling my business off of to start. And I said, if these guys can be successful, I can be successful, because they all started in the same way. They started selling fitness equipment. They started small. And then they grew and they exploded. Just as an example, the used gym store in Hickory. Now, I didn't know this when I first started, but I found out eventually, it was further confirmation this works. They started their business in 2008 during the recession. They got fired. And I thought for sure nobody would be buying anything during a recession, but everybody was buying used equipment because nobody could afford the new stuff. So they took off. They started with 1,000 square feet, and now they have a 50,000 square foot warehouse. I'm just getting started as well. And the coronavirus obviously gave us a jump start, but I was, again, when we were first starting out, I was looking for other proof points other than just, oh my gosh, the fitness equipment business is exploding. Let's exploit that. And then this might fall off a cliff. I wanted longevity. I wanted repeat customers. And so, so we priced accordingly. We had really good customer service up front. And I made sure that what I was doing was repeatable. So the things and the deals I was going after, over time, I started developing different processes to go after bigger and bigger loads. So eventually I just nixed the one-offs. So if some guy in his garage was selling some plates in a bar, I would let anybody else go after that. I wouldn't. I would go after big auctions, liquidations, things I can fit in my warehouse that come in bulk. And it might be, it might be only 3 or 4 pieces, but they're bigger pieces and they sell for more money. And then the smaller stuff, I'm starting to get a network of suppliers and distributors that I can get new plates from, and always have that base. And then if I happen to come across, used plates or used bars, that's a bonus, but I'm not expecting it on a regular basis unless it's part of a bigger lot. So that's how I thought through this process: is what other businesses are here that I can look to for success? Have they been successful long term? How can I model my business after that? And then how can I create an atmosphere and a business model that is sustainable and people want to come back to? So we're leaning pretty heavily on, and we're going to be leaning even more heavily on, like, the USA made freedom kind of mantra. We want to come out with our own line of fitness equipment made in the US. And then at some point, I really want to, we've had so many vets and first responders come into our store. I want to have something special, a line of equipment, a discount, something, a program for them, for veterans and for first responders. I don't know what that's going to look like yet, but anyway, that's probably too much information, but that's how we got started.
But speaking of being made in America, that's one of the first videos I saw of you on TikTok was calling out one of the giants in the industry, and not bashfully so, for that matter. well, I get, well, Rogue, you know, they
Mhm.
can sue me if they want.
What are they going to take?
Exactly. I have t-shirts. That's what they're going to definitely come after that line.
What are they going to come poach me?
We're checking this man.
Yeah.
He lists me in his assets. Don't ask why.
Oh man. But yeah, so you're talking about how at least their Olympic plates, by the sounds of it, aren't
Yep.
made in the USA. But that was the big thing that I remember they always
Yeah.
talked about in the very beginning, at least, was
Yeah.
made in Ohio and shit like that. And
Oh yeah. Yeah. If you don't look at the fine print, you'll miss it. Because they really promote their bars, and I don't even know if I think their racks are made in the US. I'd have to double check again. I'm not sure if all of them are, but at least most of them are, I believe. But yeah, when I was looking through their plates, I'm like, wait a second. Not made in the US, not made in the US, not made in the US. Oh, your machine plates aren't made in the US. So the only people that you can compare me to at this point are the Strength Co. And the Strength Co is based out of, gosh, I don't want to say California. I don't think they're out. I think they're out west somewhere. Anyway, they're truly made in the US, and they are actually machined like here in the States. Rogue, I mean, they're nice plates, but I don't know about their quality control. I don't know about, any of that stuff. And at least I can, if something goes wrong with my plate, I can go back to the manufacturer and be like, look, dude, you did this wrong. You need to make it right for the customer. With China, it's like, oh, we'll just send you thousands of more plates, and they might all be wrong again. And it's like, so, I feel like it's not false advertising. I'm not trying to call them out for that. I was doing the wrong comparison, and people were like, oh, Rogue's cheaper. First of all, that's wrong. Second of all, I beat them not only in price but also shipping rates, which I was shocked at. And third of all, you're not comparing apples to apples. A plate that's made in the US is not the same as a plate made in China. And I only know this because of a couple of videos that I've seen that talk about the difference between like good iron and pot iron, which is like a really it's a more fragile type of iron or iron ore that they use. I need to do more research on this. All I know is that even down to like the cardboard, when you import stuff, there's a marked difference in quality, even on the packaging. And I don't know what it is. We walked into a Pier 1 one time, and the lady was like, whenever there's a Chinese shipment, I stay away from the cardboard because I literally like break out in a rash when I touch the cardboard box. It's that bad.
Huh.
So people can say all they want. Oh, made in the US is more expensive. And I get that. Like, it is more expensive, but you're paying for a certain type of quality. And if you value that, buy that. Also, if you value price, buy from me. But like, if you value quality, buy this kind of American made stuff. And Rogue's great. Like, their Ohio Power Bar, made in the United States, great stuff. But you'll notice that there's a difference between that and some generic fitness gear barbell that you buy at Dick's Sporting Goods. And I have had people compare barbells. Like, they want a $50 barbell, and I'm like, it's not the same thing. So anyway, yeah, I went straight after Rogue starting out because I assumed incorrectly that they were all manufactured in the United States, and now I'm finding out they're probably made in the same factory as everybody freaking else. And I don't know. I'm trying to educate people a little bit more on and change the perception on that because it's challenging.
Right. And I can, with the price, I imagine there's that little bit of the brand recognition. So you can charge a little bit more or a lot more depending on who you are. And that's not just the fitness industry, that's everywhere.
Yeah. And I mentioned that in the videos, and I'm trying to build a brand myself. And I have nothing against Rogue or Rep Fitness or Titan doing that. But there comes a point at which a great example of this is rubber coated dumbbells. All rubber coated dumbbells that have that little like oval shaped handle in the middle and it's chrome, they're all made in the same factory in China. There is no difference. You can stamp Rogue on it all day. It doesn't make it a different dumbbell. And yet they charge $2 and $3 a pound for a rubber coated dumbbell that is the same as, I mean, you can, this is a hard pill to swallow, but you can buy the same dumbbell at Walmart that you can buy on Rogue, and that pisses people off. Sorry. So,
But you also mentioned, you started off right around COVID starting up. I mean, how did you fare during all of that? I mean, did you see an increase in the market sales with, so many commercial gyms being forced to close their doors down for months on end?
yeah.
I mean, I've seen, being in my industry, seen a huge boom in the DIY customers that watch HGTV all weekend, then on Monday wake up and decide, hey, we're going to remodel the bathroom this week. I imagine, and I know bike sales, pedal bikes have been through the roof over the last year, and still last time I looked, probably a couple weeks ago, they're still having a shortage on bikes. Is it the same way for you?
Oh yeah. So just to give you a sense of how much the market has changed, Hammer Strength and Life Fitness and all those companies came out with their own home gym equipment lines for the first time in forever. So they did not make residential lines at all. And now they are breaking into the home gym space like you wouldn't believe. They're way behind because Rep Fitness, Titan, Rogue, all those guys have years of experience on them, but they're making a push and they've got the brand recognition and the clout to do it. And the reason they were able to do that is because the explosion of home gym and garage gym users during COVID has stayed and has staying power, because who the heck wants to drive back and forth from the gym? And small example, you're driving 2 to 3 hours to commute in New York. Do you really want to drive back and forth an hour to the gym again on top of that, like 3 or 4 times per week? No thanks. I'll build a home gym. So a great example of this is, I think California still has a number of restrictions. I've got probably 50% or more of my customers, or at least people looking at our page, in California. And like traffic's nuts over there. So I'm sure that's a huge contributing factor. But when we were first starting out, it was anything and everything you could put your hands on would sell. It didn't matter if it was rusted, broken, or almost unusable, it would sell. You could almost put a hole through a cast iron plate. You could put a hole through concrete, and people are doing this, and you could sell it as a weight. So it's crazy. I mean, I remember, I did the same thing. Like, I had some rusty plates and people were so desperate that, they were like, I'll buy them. It didn't matter how many or what kind of condition. So I tried to clean them up and make them look nice. But sometimes I'm just like, if people are just going to buy them anyway, let them buy them. I mean, people need this stuff, so whatever. And then there were that definitely cooled down, but that was hot for 8 to 12 months was probably the time frame. And stuff sold so fast, you could not get it in stock. I couldn't find inventory. It got that bad. So, and there were gyms closing, but I wasn't able to get my hands on that stuff because when we first started, it was our sunroom. And if Life Fitness shuts down, I can't store Life Fitness's equipment in my sunroom, unfortunately. I also can't rent out enough public storage to store that much stuff. So we ended up building an on-site shed that was 400 and something square feet. That wasn't big enough. We expanded to a 2-car carport. That wasn't big enough. We got a pod, and that wasn't enough. So we ended up getting this and leasing this warehouse that we have today in Charlotte. But that was because we were turning so much inventory that we just couldn't keep up. And the stuff that turned a little bit slower, especially at the time, it really wasn't that slow. Like a month would have been slow, and that wasn't really. Now stuff might sit for a couple of months, especially if it's bigger stuff, and that's not abnormal. But yeah, the amount of people looking for the big things that changed. So home gyms were doing all right before that, but when COVID happened, you'll notice wall mounted racks were huge. Any and all plates and bars always sell really well for us and sold really well during the pandemic. Adjustable benches, rowers. To this day, if you can get your hands on a Concept 2 rower, I mean, there are instances, if it's in good enough shape, you can sell it for well over $1,000. So those like 2 or 3 main things for home gyms saw significant increases in demand. And so we rode that wave up until the summer, where things kind of started to slow down. And every fitness equipment dealer has those cycles, right? So Q4, Q1, with the holidays and people getting back into the gym is when everything ramps back up. And then you have a dead spot in the summer because everybody either has their beach body or they don't have their beach body and they don't care. So, yeah, we definitely rode the wave, but it was really cool because I had been wanting a home gym for a while. So that gave us a convenient excuse to start one. And then we started serving people who were in the home gym and garage gym community. And through the podcast and a bunch of other ways, just through the website and selling stuff, we've been able to make a bunch of different connections. I actually interviewed Joe from Gray Matter Lifting, who hosts the Garage Gym competition, which is a worldwide powerlifting competition. And through him, I've been connected to and understood more about like the Garage Gym review space and all those guys that are kind of running things behind the scenes now that really blew up during that time. But I noticed a huge explosion within Garage Gym review sites, Garage Gym Lab, Garage Gym Reviews, Basement Brandon, people like Alan Thrall. Their viewership took off. So I love that. I love all their content. And so I was just like funneling as many people as I could to those people, because I was like, if you're into home gyms, look at this person. If you need a tip about this guy, go to this website. And I still do to this day. So anyway, so we rode the wave, really good connections through that, and just more plugged into the home gym community as a result. It's been awesome.
Yeah, well, speaking of people you've talked to, I saw, was it last week you talked to, is it Frank from Lyft Evil?
Yes.
When we get off air, I'm gonna have to ask you how you got in there, because Justin has been following Lyft Evil for how long?
Oh yeah. Oh, I mean, I don't know how long he's been around, but I've been repping Frank's gear for quite a while.
Nice.
Down to the point where, like, and this speaks multitudes about the man, and I'll leave it at that, because what he does and his personality, that I can tell is he's a good dude. I ordered stuff during the first like big shutdown here in the Midwest for everything. I forget how big the order was, but something happened in transit and it shows delivered. And I'm like, oh, cool. I live in Minnesota. It delivered to Illinois.
Oh.
So my package was left on somebody's front porch in Illinois, and I finally got a hold of him and was like, hey, I didn't get my stuff. Any idea what's going on? And he was just like, let me look into it, give me the order number and all that. Dude immediately refunded everything and was like, yeah, I don't have any of those things in stock anymore. We sold out. And I was like, oh, so I just put that money away, and the next drop he did, I would turn around and bought more shit. And yeah, no, absolutely love the stuff he does. But hearing, I think I actually sent him an email about being on ROA as well. And it's just funny that now this weird little connection.
It's interesting about podcast guests, right? I think one of the questions you had for me, Gordon, was like, how do you get these people on? So,
because I think I'm sitting unread in about 1,000 different inboxes on Facebook and Instagram, but along with all the other trash that they get.
Yep. And I think that's part of it. So I take shoot your shot strategy, which is the worst they can say is no. And I've gotten non-responses. I've gotten so many non-responses, or, oh yeah, I'll follow up. And then I follow up and nothing happens. But with certain people, particularly now, I can't do this as much as I want to because I'm so busy. If there's certain people that I really, really enjoy, I'll start following them, and then I may or may not be noticed in the comments section at some point, and then I'll message them, or I'll make a comment and be like, yo, you need to come on my podcast. I love your content. I'd be like, oh yeah, email me, and I might get them that way. But that's very infrequent. Most of the time I'm literally just emailing or calling or messaging them through Instagram and saying, hey, do you want to come on? And Frank was that way. I'm trying to remember exactly how. I think I've been following Frank for a while. So I commented on, I think I've commented on a couple of his stuff because I freaking love his designs. I think the guy is truly original, and he doesn't. We talked a little bit about this. Like the guy doesn't copycat anything. So I've been wanting to buy his stuff, and I'm cheap, and I know that sounds awful, but like I need to support the guy more than I do. But anyway, I got him on the podcast by literally just messaging him because I think I commented on a few of his things or replied to a few of his stories. And for whatever reason, he's like, oh yeah, no, cool. Anytime, just let me know. And he battled through diverticulitis, which is some gut issue. So we had a little hiccup there, but we eventually got him on. But yeah, that guy is badass. And he doesn't pull any punches, and he is going to speak his mind. And I absolutely love that, because there's a lot of these guys that are going to keep their little guarded opinions, and he's got a couple of people he really respects that I also want to interview. But like if you can find those tight communities, particularly with the artist space, they usually make really good stuff. So yeah, the podcast guests in general are an interesting breed, because if you're not big enough, I say big enough, or if you haven't got enough notice from them, sometimes they won't even give you the time of day. And that's really difficult for me, because what I want to do is be like, screw you, I will never talk to you again. And I really have to restrain myself, because I've got this passive aggressive streak in me that I've got to tamp down every time I see it coming back up.
That Canadian in you.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm being called out over here.
Dude, I'm Canadian. I kid you not. So yeah, but yeah, every time that happens to me, so I want to blow up, and I want to get to 1 million followers and then be like, you didn't want me this time. Well, I don't want you this time either. But I don't hold it against anybody, because at that level, you don't, especially starting out, you don't really know if they're serious or not. I'm only 20 something episodes in. So at that point, unless you're 100, 200, or even 1,000, like some guy I just interviewed, episodes in, they're not going to give you any kind of respect. And that's okay. I get it. Other times, like, you'll really get surprised. So I had messaged Adam over at Garage Gym Lab about something way back in the day. And then I messaged him again about coming on the podcast, and he said yes. And I was so nervous. You have no idea. Like, I screwed up that interview several times, and you can see it live because I don't cut anything. But yeah, some people, it doesn't matter how big they are, they're just willing to talk to you. That was the thing with, like, when I went to FitCon in Texas, I was trying to get with a bunch of different really high profile people, Brian Dobson, Gabby Borgels, or America's Strongest Woman, and a couple other like big fitness icons. Gabby was super sweet. Brian was so down to earth. Like, I feel like anybody could have walked in and just interviewed him. And he's trained Branch Warren and Ronnie Coleman. I mean, how much bigger do you get than that? So some of these guys really surprised me. But then you've got the people that they're not stuck up. It's just they're so focused on their business that if it's not driving additional revenue and marketing for them, I wouldn't come on, to be perfectly frank, because it's a waste of my time. It's an hour or 2 hours where I'm not continuing to increase my brand and my following. So I get it from their standpoint. You can't be on every podcast. I'm sure they have thousands of DMs like, oh, you should come on here. So they probably got to pick and choose.
That's the same thing we found in music.
Yeah.
So I do a fair amount of concert photography, and as a result, Gordon's gotten to kind of fangirl a little bit a few times, because
Nice.
I'm up next to a stage photographing these people, and he's in the back just pie-eyed. What the hell? But that's the same thing, like you said, shoot your shot is the mentality for it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, like you said, the worst they're going to say is no, but that's the same thing, bands that I grew up listening to that I couldn't believe I had the chance to finally photograph and even just say hi to.
Yeah.
And they are the nicest people and will talk to anyone because they appreciate what you're doing and that you appreciate them. But then there's also the people that are it's less brand driven in that sense. Like I get a point where it's a business owner or like someone who's promoting it in that way. There's about a 50-50 split between musicians where it's like, oh, you're down to talk to everyone or you're just an asshole.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, oh, why should I talk to you? Because I just photographed your entire set and you look cool. Do you want them? I'm not selling them. You can have them for free. Just don't be a dick.
Yeah. And I have yet to, in the fitness space, particularly in powerlifting and strongman, I have yet to come up against somebody who is a jackass, but I know they're out there. Normally everybody I talk to is super down to earth. And I'm trying to keep it that way. I'm trying to keep it no BS. I'm not going to have, oh dear Lord, I refuse to have these stereotypical fitness influencers on the podcast. If I see your content and I kind of like where you're going, I'll look a little deeper and see if you're worth, having on. And you might be small, but as long as you're not spewing it and trying to get, clicks just for garbage, you're welcome. If you're shredded and or have a butt, yeah, and you're loaded with plastic surgery and you're on all sorts of steroids and you're not talking about and you're claiming you're 100% natural and you have all these tips about air squatting so you can get, a massive behind, you're not coming on the podcast. Sorry.
4 tricks to burn stubborn belly fat.
Screw
3
you.
superfoods to lose weight overnight.
Oh my gosh. And I know some of those guys are really trying, and that is the only way that they think they can make followers. And I'm like, you have the instance, a couple of major accounts who know what they're talking about start calling you out. Yeah, you're going to get the attention, but eventually, I listen a lot to Gary Vaynerchuk. I'm all about the long-term play. If you do not establish a culture and a brand that is honest and transparent, you will die on the vine. And that's the way those accounts are going to go, because they're a dime a dozen.
Right. I'm not huge into following the bodybuilding world, but there's a few big names out there that I follow on, watch your YouTube videos and stuff like that. But Rich, I'm going to butcher his last name.
Piana?
Yes, Piana. I respected the hell out of him. He came across as your typical California douchebag, but I respected the hell out of him because he was completely honest in saying, I'm taking this many milligrams or grams rather of this and this and this, and I use this on show day. And it's like, why can't more in the industry be like that? Like everybody, you look at Phil Heath or Kai Green.
Yep.
Or in Ronnie Coleman in his prime, it's like, you're obviously on something. So why are you trying to hide it? Like, we're not, you're certainly not a natural vegan diet. I can see that.
Oh, can I talk about Kai Green for a minute?
Sure.
Do it. I mean, I'm afraid he'll eat me, but do it.
Dude, that guy. So I went up and I did there was a clip on, it may still be in my reels, where I asked him, what is your favorite piece of fitness equipment? Because I'm in the fitness equipment business. It's a stereotypical question. I was truly curious. Like, if you have a home gym, and he said, oh, you're talking about like high end or budget. And I go, well, give me one of both. I kid you not. You know what his response was?
I have a feeling I know, but do it anyway.
This is your favorite piece of fitness equipment. The mindset. I wanted to throw my
not where
phone
I thought
at
that
him.
was going.
Wanted to throw my phone. What did you think he was going to say?
What's your favorite piece of fitness equipment? Syringes.
That too.
Friend, what do you got?
Yeah. So if you watch any of his content, it's all like that. And it infuriates me because the guy is saying so much with so little. And it makes me not want to, if I had the opportunity to interview the guy, I don't think I would, because he's not saying anything. He was on stage and he said to the crowd, I have been accused of saying, not saying a whole lot, or saying a lot without saying a whole lot. And then he goes on a rant about the mentality that you have to have and how it's the drive within you. And he was being asked a question about nutrition. And I'm like, are you high?
Probably. Well, that's so much with anything you'll find now. I mean, God, I forget who is it. It's still your motherfucking set. Who is? I can't think of his name right off the top of my head.
Yes.
CT Fletcher.
Yes,
Yes, like I can appreciate things like that in a sense, but at the end of the day, the people that are out preaching it's all mentality, it's it's discipline over motivation. Yeah, to a point. But that means that you've literally never struggled with anything mentally in your life and
Right.
you've dedicated to this. Like myself personally, and not to say that I'm out here grinding and putting on doing what they're doing. I run 60-hour work weeks, I run a bar. I have employees, I have product, I have over 1,000 bottles on my walls. Like, no, it's not all mindset. You have to back off, but you can't just grind. Like the idea of that grind hustle mentality, it's all in your head. You can do whatever you believe. Like you eventually have to take care of yourself because you will grind yourself into the ground.
Yeah.
Like respect the hustle. Well, I do, but you're also working harder, not smarter, or neither. But it always kills me seeing that kind of stuff because I see it in every industry, every culture, everything like that is always that. It's all about your mindset. Is it? Because I have ADHD and anxiety. Are you sure?
Yeah,
it's a superpower in some settings, but not today.
I am fully convinced that business is a lazy man's game. And here's the reason I say that. If you are all about doing the least amount of work for the most return possible, you will be extremely successful. This goes for digital as well as physical products. So I've learned that to outsource, for example, getting equipment to my location will save you time, money, effort, and you will allow you to dedicate the opportunity cost, which is the resources you could have been using while you were driving a truck 6 hours, to something more useful. That for some people is lazy. It's not hustling, but I just allocated my resources way more efficiently because I don't like sweating my butt off just hauling. I was doing that today. I was hauling, like sweating my buns off, trying to haul ass, getting down to the end of my warehouse.
Young man.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, right. Don't listen to him.
trying to get to the end of my warehouse and bring this stuff up a ramp and then unload a piece of equipment so it could go back down to South Carolina. It was hot, sweaty work. If I had a warehouse worker, I would automatically offload that to him and be doing a bunch of marketing in the meantime just to get more brand recognition. I can't do that yet, but I will. And with the equipment stuff, I'm going to bring stuff in all day. But that's, again, like if you think like a lazy person, which this sounds really retarded, but if you think like a lazy person, you'll be more successful because what does a lazy person want to do? A lazy person wants to sit around and watch TV or be with their family or like have a bunch of fun and not really do any hard work. Well, if you think like an owner, you're technically thinking like a lazy person because you want to do what you want to do. Like eventually you want to completely outsource the business and sit on the couch and be able to do what you want, whether it is actually work inside the warehouse or go out and have ice cream. And that involves outsourcing stuff. So like, yeah, that hustle culture, man, it's a two-edged sword and you really do have to grind things out at the beginning. But if you don't become more efficient with your time, and whether or not you want to call that laziness is, we can debate that all day long, but I personally haven't seen people be, here's the problem. So like listening to Gary Vaynerchuk has taught me two things. One, if you're the face of your brand, you always have to be on. There's kind of a problem with that. So like if you're constantly putting out content, you're the face, like that's a lot of work. On the other hand, there's different ways to put yourself out there without you actually physically being in front of a camera. So anyway, all that to say, there's different ways of doing that and maximizing the efficiency, but the grind up front, yes. The grind in the back end, probably want to look at what your systems are and how they're working for you or not working for you. So I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, I was just listening to another show and I can't remember the guest's name now, but he was talking about when he hired his first full-time employee. He goes, that just freed up 40 hours of my week.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean I can, hey, cool, now I have 40 free hours to go do fuck all. I have to now do 40 hours of something else to keep this moving, or else I'm going to tank. And then now I am down an employee and I'm back to square one again. And yeah,
To circle back on that a little bit, you mentioned Gary Vaynerchuk, and I've seen a little bit of his stuff, and then I also heavily follow being in the industry. I am Eric Castro, who runs a podcast called Bartender at Large.
Oh, cool.
Very much meant for industry people. It's not like how to make the best mojito in your kitchen. It's like, hey, how do you price a menu? Hey, how do you prevent burnout? Things like
Cool.
that. It's really, really in depth. Like, here's the global ambassadors for Jaeger. Like, let's talk about things like whatever it may be. Like, it's a really cool show.
Nice.
Really good for those who are like career industry like myself.
Mhm.
But there's 2 points that I come to, and I look at Eric's first, which is talking about the idea, like you said, if you're the owner, the face of something, it's always really funny to me when I hear these young kids be like, God, I'm gonna open my bar, and then you can scoop all the ice, and I'm just gonna do whatever. And it's like, you don't understand how business works at all.
No.
Like the top thing is, you're finding that role. You're filling that in, and to tie that into what Gary says is something that resonated with me, being working through leadership roles.
Mhm.
You can never expect someone to give a fuck about what you do if you're an owner or a manager, like invested in it as much as you do.
Oh
It's
my gosh,
really
yes.
it's really unfair to think that of anyone, because what makes you tick, like me, I am an absolute nerd about spirits and cocktail and bar culture and beer and wine, and I love to educate people. I love to give building blocks to those who are maybe not given that chance. I'm kind of a goofy looking bastard. If someone hadn't taken a chance on me back in the day, because I'm covered in tattoos and have big damn holes in my ears and stuff like that, like I probably wouldn't have advanced to the level I would. I wouldn't have found that home in it, and I love it. So I love to educate. I love to train. What Gary said that resonated with me was that everyone has goals in their life. Me having a bartender on my staff does not mean that they care as much about that or even the bar itself as much as I do. They have something that makes them tick, and if you can empower them to like be able to move forward to do that, invest in them in that way, you will forever have someone who will be, I hate the word like loyal because it sounds like you're manipulating them, but it's someone who will be willing to help, willing to put in, willing to do that bit extra because they know that you're invested in seeing them succeed and what makes them happy, what drives them. And it's the same thing with the idea of delegation. And like you were talking about, what was it? Was it the you got your first full-time employee and now you got 40 hours a week that are free, but it's 40 hours of something different.
Yep.
I'm not a salary manager. I am behind these things. I am slinging drinks with my people because I love to do it and I love to be there with them.
Mm-hmm.
And I love to do that empowerment. I don't want to be a clipboard manager. I don't want to be the person that's like, well, sorry, so-and-so called out, so no, you all get to work overtime. Like, no, hell yeah, I'll work the hours for you. Let's do it. But it's also because I find fulfillment in it. So there's such a different set between industries, and that's where the not divisiveness, but it's such a different mindset. Because when you start to look at things versus, like you said, if someone comes in it in a look of like most amount of money, least amount of work, could be wildly successful because you figure out how to delegate. But then you start falling into, where does passion projects start to fall into place, where I will gladly grind 40, 50 hours a week because I love being behind that bar and just doing that job.
Yeah.
Versus necessarily, hey, I need to market, I need to do this. It's just such a different thing. It's so weird to see the comparisons because as Gordon knows, I've been grinding myself into the ground right now with staffing issues, and it's weird to go, wow, there's things outside of restaurants. Like,
I can't imagine the staffing issues right now with COVID. Holy crap.
It's not so bad as you would think. And I will say this to everyone listening. At least here, Minnesota, Twin Cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul, our unemployment rates are lower than they were pre-COVID for this industry.
Oh, wow.
At least to my knowledge, last time I saw the numbers, I have friends who work for the state.
Okay.
What happened is you look at an industry that is massive. It's got gaping holes in it because of just flaws from over the decades. And then you put something in place that brings uncertainty and lack of income and realistically not a lot of unemployment, because if you're a tipped employee, especially, or in our industry, a lot of undocumented people being in back of house, people got out. And I can imagine that's in a lot of different settings as well, but that's the whole thing. There's not a labor shortage. It's just, there's a labor shortage in this certain specter.
Yeah.
It's, people are willing to work, but they also are, it's a buyer's market right now.
Oh yeah.
You want to talk about, let's talk about benefits, let's talk about pay rates, let's talk about hours. There's a whole thing right now with like Facebook groups for industry and stuff like that, and I've seen it across everything from fitness to restaurants to, I mean, probably not so much like corporate America, but oh, hey,
it's
we're
a little bit in
hiring.
corporate America.
You gonna post the things on that, or we're just gonna drag you on the internet?
Wow.
It's a dream. Sorry, rambling about things.
Oh, that's fine.
No, but
I haven't slept in like 3 weeks. Don't mind me.
but to go back to that, these atypical, I hate the word influencers, but where they talk about keep grinding. It's like, well, yeah, no shit. But how about you give me something a little bit more empirical? But I've gotten that in corporate America. I've been working corporate jobs for too long. And I've had companies that do that. They have the big hoo-ha get together, rented out the giant convention center, and they talk about just keep going out there and keep grinding. You'll get those sales. It's like, okay, great. Okay, so I put my feet to the pavement. I'm in front of a customer. What do I say?
Yeah.
How do I talk about them? And it wasn't until the current company that I work for that they actually do that training, and they talk about what to talk about, how to talk about, and how to match communication styles with different people and shit like that. It's like, why can't other wider industries do this as well, especially in the social media realm in particular? And, you get, of course, on my Facebook feed, I get ads all the time about how to market your podcast. It's like, oh, shut up.
I mean, adjectives and verbiage as far as speaking about anything is a really big thing in corporation work. I went through corporate sales training for like the Men's Warehouse when I worked for them for 4 months, and then quit the week after because I felt just dirty. Granted, Gordon knows this. I'm a talker to begin with. Not a thing that I needed help with, but it was one of those things where, yeah, you can take something from it, but teaching people how to work a dialogue and, like you said, communication matching. Don't manipulate the conversation, but empower your people, whether you're an employer or a manager or even whatever it may be, but give them the ability to find common ground. Because breaking honesty in any conversation, it's immediately spottable, and you've lost that trust. It's gone. Yeah. They will never purchase anything from you. They will never contact you. It's like,
this is true in my industry as well. So it's particularly hard. It is sometimes difficult for me to do this, but other times very easy. A lady came in the other day and was asking about a fold-away rack or just compact storage options for a home gym. And I have a couple of squat stands, and they're fine and dandy. But honestly, they sounded like they were debating between a few other options. I was like, are you talking about PRX? Or because there's also Rogue and Titan, and they have different fold-away options depending on your ceiling height. So I started talking about other brands. We don't sell them. And you would think that is totally, totally backwards. Yet I have seen this play out in real life. So there's a gentleman who runs a septic company on TikTok, and he's got like 1.2 million followers. Yeah. I don't know how in the heck he's shoveling food.
Wells and Septic?
Yeah.
Is that the guy that's always talking about like, don't be rude to your people, or we just won't show up to your appointments and you can just live in your shit or whatever?
Yeah.
Maybe
kind of redheaded dude.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. He also spent $5,000 on plastic skeletons and have maybe left them in various tanks just to wait.
Oh, that's amazing.
I'm in the wrong industry.
I know, right? So he was talking about how he will literally tell a customer, I am not the cheapest. You should shop around. And they go, no, we're going with you. So I don't know. That just, to me, confirms that total transparency and honesty, recommending things that people will actually, like, if you have something there, obviously you can choose this, but also, have you thought about this? So it will work in your favor because people will come to you as a resource, not as a salesperson. And there's a very important difference. You are a salesperson, but you are also trying to build a relationship with somebody that can't be broken. And so often I see it's just a straight sale. And that's why people come to, I feel like that's why some people come to us, and why people come back. But that's the majority of the content I'm putting out on TikTok, Instagram. Like, I'm trying to educate people about the best options And it doesn't have to be buying from me. And I have literally told people, do not buy this. And it's sitting in my warehouse. I have told people not to buy a military badge. I have told people not to buy a bench press that doesn't have safety spotters. And I'll mark it down and I'll eventually sell it. But people resonate with that. I had somebody ask me on a comment to one of my videos, is this reverse psychology? I'm like, I mean, sure. No.
No, not at all. I mean,
no.
it's you're building trust within a group of people, and I'm so glad that I said it on this one, because you guys being so much what you do, very business sales oriented and how you drive things,
yeah,
versus service and stuff like that. Like, it's such a unique thing to hear that in a side of excuse me, like sales and like not corporate America, but more in this line of like business sells product, makes this much, versus hi, we provide this for you and we customize it for you and stuff like that. But like you said, you going, hey, don't buy that. You don't.
Yeah.
Don't. Because at the end of the day, you're providing them what's best for them.
Yeah.
Not necessarily what's going to be the most expensive.
I have told people to their face as they are walking through our warehouse picking stuff out, do not buy this. This is not a good idea. You are overspending. Please do not get bumpers, buy metal plates. Please do not get this nice, shiny, new, expensive bar, buy a used bar. Please do not get this nice, shiny, new item over here, buy this used item over here. Like, even just price differences, or like, hold off. You definitely don't need this. I had one, oh my gosh, dude. Oh, this made me angry. I had a lady walk in and she told me she had gone into a store, said she was going to spend $1,000. She walked out having spent $8,000 on a pallet of equipment. And anytime that you do that as an individual who is just trying to get the sale, you will either have a return, or B, if you don't have a return policy, a very pissed off customer who has buyer's remorse all day long. And if you want that kind of, person walking in and out of your door, that's fine. There's thousands and millions of them to be had, but you will not have the reputation that you so desire, and the reciprocity from a friendship, relationship, and customer standpoint that you're looking for. It's just, I firmly believe that.
That's something, Gordon, you've talked about too, where even within the world of paint, you and I have talked, obviously we've known each other for years, but it's one of those things where you'll be like, yeah, it's trying to get these people to understand that you're dealing with people.
Yeah.
Like, the end of the day, like, yeah, you're moving a product in some way or another, but at the end of the day, the relationships you build is how it continues. Treat a person like a person, work on that trust, take care of them, and at least in my world, it's make them feel special.
Yeah.
So, okay, hypothetical here, and I want to just kind of hear about it. Ashton, are you a drinking man?
Yes.
What is your beverage of choice?
Oh gosh.
Well, you don't have to like be specific, but like, are you more of like a beer guy? Do you like spirits? Do you like cocktails? Do you like whiskey, gin, rum, tequila? Like, give me something.
I'm gonna give myself away. So fruity cocktails.
Oh, my dude. I live in a world that makes pink drinks, and I don't. You're gonna do glass? Shut up. I turn into God. What is the editor's name in Spider-Man?
Jonah Hill or Jonah.
Yes.
Jonah
What?
something.
Jonah Hill is definitely super bad. But
Yeah. Hold on.
But is it JP something?
Oh,
hold on. I thought it was Jonah something.
Either way, flat top mustache.
Right?
Oh
yeah.
Yeah, no, someone's like, can I get a do glass? I just turned into him and Spider-Man 2. Shut up, get out. Like, because I don't know how to tell you this, but coupe glasses were modeled
J. Jonah
breasts.
Jameson.
There we go.
Wow. Does he still Irish
together,
whiskey too? Jesus. But okay, so you like, fruity, probably a little bit sweeter drinks, because at the end of the day, it's efficient and they taste good. It's awesome.
Yeah.
But if you go, hey, I want you to make me a cocktail, bartender, ma'am. And I go, cool. What do you like for flavors? And you tell me that. And I go, awesome. Just so you're aware, I want to make sure we're sitting at the price point wise, because I don't want to, hey, make me something, and I pour you the most expensive bottle I have. Here's your $35 Cosmo. That trust is gone.
Yeah.
Not only will you never probably come back, you now just think I'm an asshole.
Yeah.
Because I am. Like, at that point, you are. Like,
Yeah.
the idea of building something to give someone the best experience and what they need the most out of it is the entire thing that our three kind of industries have in common.
Yeah.
And because you're bettering yourself, you're bettering your home, and I'm ruining your morning.
True enough.
No, and I've had those conversations before where a customer will call and say, hey, I want this Ferrari model piece of equipment. I go, okay, why?
Do you?
And they explain, well, this is what I do. I go, okay, let's forget the Ferrari for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Let me show you this F-150. Will it work? Yes. Is it shiny? Sure. But you don't need that. I will sell you 2 of those if you want, but you really only need this over here. And a lot of people that I've, especially in the rural market that I'm in, they're kind of shocked by that. Well, this other shop said I needed the Ferrari. I go, well, they're idiots because their training consisted of a 10-minute video. I have almost over 10 years of experience in this. And here's some reasons why. So I think the honest salesman is rare and far between.
Yeah, and there's a difference between, and I'm having to walk this line right now. So what I used to do, and here's where you can get into, price versus value and brand behind that, because people on this might be hearing this podcast and thinking, oh, you're just recommending the cheapest thing for somebody that works for them. And yeah, I mean, in a lot of cases, that's probably true. But there's a fine line between offering something of value to somebody. This goes back to like the American plates versus a Chinese plate discussion. You can buy cheap cast iron Chinese made steel, won't have the accuracy of a machine plate that's made here in the United States. So that's a value difference that you're prioritizing versus a cost difference. And that's, for me, that's probably going to become more and more important. I'll always have, from a used equipment standpoint, a price advantage over brand new shiny stuff. But I think over time, especially as we develop our new line of fitness equipment that's made in the States, I'll really start to have to make a push while still being honest about the value of American made equipment. And I'm still going to I'm having to think through how I'm going to make those comparisons, because you can live on Walmart prices. You can also die on Walmart prices. And I haven't quite figured out the balance. I used to discount almost everything in our store. And then I realized I'm going to become something of a monster at some point to myself. So I stopped doing that. I'll run the occasional sale at an unpredictable rate. But yeah, I don't know what your guys' opinion is on those differences and how you project yourself from a business standpoint, but I'm still thinking through how I want to do that, because I want Freedom Fitness Equipment to mean something. I don't want it to just mean, oh, you're going to the bargain bin, because I don't know, you get a certain type of customer for that. And unless you're really educating the heck out of people, you may not get some of the bigger players that are really looking for good stuff. So I don't know, still a process.
Yeah, I mean, with the podcast, at least, the merch is small amount, and like I try to keep it cheaper than like the really big names out there, just because like if I can make enough to buy a beer at the end of the day, I'm pretty happy. If I can get a new microphone, even better. But I'm not sweating over it.
Yeah.
But in that same vein, I've seen you do videos where you're talking to and explaining how people can get started on their own home gym by purchasing used equipment, plates, whatever the case may be, in bulk. And we lost Justin.
Nope.
And then selling the excess.
Yeah.
So the business side of me says, stop giving away your secrets. Are you worried that's going to hurt your business model or add more competition to the market?
It might, and they are not going to do as well as I am. because I'm better than they are. And I say that with an enormous amount of pride, and I don't give a fuck. Because I know what I've been able to, I know what I've done to build this business to this point. And I don't mind giving away all of the secrets publicly. In fact, that in the fitness business, that has made people so successful. A great example of this is John Meadows, who just passed away. So he was wide open about steroid use, training techniques, and the things that made him successful, and giving you as much information as possible. Elite FTS, who he was sponsored by, is another great example of this. The amount of content on their website is mind blowing, and they're becoming my go-to for bench tips and deadlift tips and squat tips now, as I'm doing more and more powerlifting. But back in the day, that was not the case. Nobody was giving out that kind of information. They were keeping it all very close to the vest and secret, because they didn't want anybody else to steal their stuff and then start selling it on the open market. Well, now we have YouTube, and all of that stuff is public, including how to flip and resell. I am not doing anything fancy. And people may be shocked to hear that. I am doing it better than the majority of people out there because I'm serious about it, and most people are only dabbling. But I am not doing anything fancy. I probably have more business savvy than some people, but I'm here to support the home gym community and garage gyms. I love that space. So if there's anything in any content that I can share, up to and including, like, not putting myself out of business, but giving away the things that are making us successful so that you can be successful with building a home gym, I will do it. Again, this is a tip that I've taken from Gary. He has decided to give away all of the information that his media company is doing tactically as well as strategically, in order to not only promote themselves, but also get their customers in front of all of the audiences like that they need. So Coca-Cola and Pepsi and all those guys. And he said a couple of times that he will get emails from people saying, ha, 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 I just stole one of your clients using the exact techniques that you recommended on your podcast or on your video here or there. And he goes, okay. So my question to them is, what are you going to do when he dies? And second of all, when he stops, like when he runs out of tips or when you suddenly don't have anywhere to go. So you're protected in that way. Nobody's ever going to know the whole story, but you can certainly, from a fitness standpoint and a reselling standpoint, you can piece together so much from just watching YouTube videos. And that's exactly how I've done it and figured it out. So I don't know. I think I'll continue to do that, and I'm not afraid of it. The market here in Charlotte is not, it's competitive, but it's not like California is currently. There was a huge upswell of a bumper plate and barbell imports from China. And so now prices are really, really low. So it's super competitive in certain areas. But because we have
because of the boom of the CrossFit industry, I know it really took off like wildfire West Coast, a little bit kind of here in the Midwest, but
it's less that and more COVID. So bumpers were big. Bumpers have always been big, or sorry, bumpers are bigger now because of CrossFit, but bumpers in general were in high demand because of COVID during the pandemic. So now people have just excess inventory. CrossFit has influenced that, though. The amount of people doing barbell and resistance training is enormous. And I'm sure at some point down the road, 10 years down the road, that it'll be a different training modality. Maybe it'll be strongman and strongman implements. So got to watch for that. But yeah.
That's what
CrossFit. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. CrossFit's done a lot for the barbell and the resistance training sport. And I love it. But I don't, again, I say that and I sound like I sound arrogant, but it's true. If you know that you're good at something, you shouldn't be afraid to give away your little secrets on how you've done something, particularly to, like, I'm friendly with the guy who owns Carolina Fitness Equipment and the guy who owns the used gym equipment store, we are direct competitors. And, if they had, I don't know, you don't shut down your competition like that. It's just part of networking and part of keeping good relationships. So while you wouldn't tell them, oh, hey, I'm sourcing this product from X, Y, or Z manufacturer, if they needed help with something like, oh, I've got a load coming in and, maybe we can work something out where you can receive it here or whatever. I don't know that I would say no. So it's a different mentality. And I think it resonates with people a lot more than I'm over here. I'm not going to tell you how I'm doing what I'm doing and go screw yourself. I may not give you, I am not going to spoon feed you. I'm not going to tell you I'm going to this auction site. I'm clicking on this button, but I could, and probably nobody would do it, to be perfectly frank. I could literally do, like right now, I could go on my computer, I could do a screen share and show everybody exactly where I'm getting my equipment. One person might do it because people are lazy. And that's fine. But, at least now the information is out there about how people can get that equipment. And for me, because I buy so much stuff, unless, because you're in the home gym community, you're limited by space. So I'm buying stuff for a warehouse. You're buying stuff for a gym, like a small gym. So that for me is not really a concern. My competitors might be looking at my videos, but they already know where to go. So whatever.
Well, speaking of the powerlifting, when did you get into that?
So I got into powerlifting in, oh gosh, it was probably a couple of years ago. I got into it right as I got, oh, no. Sorry. This was probably 3 to 5 years ago. It was right as I got married. I was starting to get into, do you know, Ripito and his starting strength handbook?
Not off the top of my head. I mean,
Okay.
there's only a handful of powerlifters I've really followed over the years, but
Okay.
like I can appreciate the sport for what it is, but
Yeah.
like I said, strongman, I got into that kind of on accident.
Yeah. I like strongman a lot. The Ripito, Mark Ripito is an old an old ornery gentleman now who is really dogmatic about lifting, but has done a lot of good for new lifters who are looking for a good, solid starting program. So he is a big fan of fads and doing your fads. So it's 5 lifts, or sorry, 3 or 4 basic lifts, 5 sets of 5 reps. And you do that every week, 3 times a week. And you just progress for infinity, I guess. And that's kind of the problem, is you can't progress for infinity, but he thinks you can. So there was a subsection of that group that broke off called barbell medicine, and they took the non-dogmatic, scientific and medically based progressive approach. And I say progressive, I hate that word, but they evolved with the science as continuously up to present day. And they said, we're gonna take this. It's a good model, but we need to. It needs to become something different, because you're telling everybody that this is the only way to do things, and it's really not. So for a beginner, that's how I started, was starting strength. It was I haven't got the handbook in front of me, but it's about this thick, and it's about how to squat, and they have anatomical references, and it's built for a coach. It's really good. And I read through the entire thing, squat, bench, deadlift, overhead press, and it taught me good form, why this form is necessary, and what kind of loads it's putting on your spine, shearing, what kind of considerations you should have from an injury standpoint, why those may or may not be warranted. And then from there, I found out that there was this offshoot of starting strength and the barbell medicine guys, and their scientific and research-based, basically just evidence-based approach to lifting. And I liked that more moderated approach, because I realized, yeah, I might not like running, but I should probably do it. Things like, you can do more than just squat, bench, and deadlift, and that's okay. And different types of lifts are okay. And maybe every so often you can dabble in CrossFit, and that's not going to kill you. Or, you can do these different kinds of things. Or maybe strength is not just strength. Maybe strength is specific to a sport. Maybe as a runner, you don't need to lift 5 times a week, stuff like that. So I like their podcast. I like their content. And I've been doing that for about 2 to 3 years now since I stopped starting strength. But powerlifting for me is just a lot of fun. I finally found something that I enjoyed. And I was doing CrossFit for so long, and I'm a skinny guy just by disposition. So I
As you
got
can see, me and Justin don't have that.
Hey,
This is
I'm
why you're
down
in strongman, though.
I'm down 41 pounds.
Heyo, nice.
I think I found them.
You just traded. So the sorry. So for me, powerlifting was a really nice change up from CrossFit, because CrossFit is so cardio heavy that if you don't orient yourself towards the strength and weightlifting aspects of CrossFit, you'll get even leaner and you'll build muscle for sure. But like, it's cardio heavy, man. It's cardio and strength. And I found out only later, after doing this for many, many years, that deadlifting for reps is probably not a good idea. And so I got away from that because there are certain things that they do that I'm not a huge fan of. And I wanted something that could build muscular size. So powerlifting was the answer for all of that. And I went to the USAPL meet here in Charlotte, had a blast. Just took some photos and videos of that, met some awesome people. And the community itself is pretty solid. Its primary rival is strongman in my mind. I think the strongman community is rip roaring solid. Just bunch of dudes lifting heavy crap, eating as much as they want, and doing insane things with random stuff you find around the house. I think that's amazing. And so at some point I may end up doing strongman. You can see how I'm built.
But I got into it 2018 and went to Minnesota Strongest Man. And I'm 6'3". I think I weighed in 320, 325, something like that. But
Nice.
I needed a bell around my neck so people wouldn't step on me. I don't feel small often, but holy shit. And then see these,
Yeah,
like, oh,
that
yeah, I
was
just
that was
lift
a
a
day.
weight. Yeah. Like, hey, cool. I just carried 400 pounds. That's pretty sweet. Look over and he's carrying 800. And it's like, oh, okay, then I'm going to go back my piece of shade here and rethink my decisions.
That is insane.
Yeah, there's some monsters at that event, and that's a small event.
Yeah.
Like, that's real. In the reality of it, that's a very, I mean, granted, you get your big five, if you will. Like, they're built different. I don't ever even want to meet them. Afraid they'll eat me. But no, I mean, being at that event with you and stuff, I mean, we're the same height. I'm a little bit different build than you, but was around the same weight. And we're just like, what the fuck? Like, just looking at people.
Oh yeah. Yeah, those guys are built different. I interviewed, it's actually coming up, Ken McClellan, who is a masters lifter and who's actually a backup for the world's strongest man. And he's 40 plus, probably getting close to 50 now, or maybe he's over 50 now. I can't remember. And he's still pulling I mean, to be a backup for world's strongest man, you gotta be ginormous. This guy's built like a truck, and he's pushing 375. So he goes, my goal is longevity, because you don't meet many 50 plus year olds that are pushing 375 that are any sort of healthy. I'm like, you don't say. So he's going for the long play, but the guys in strongman are just built different, man. And I respect the heck out of all you guys, just for how much stuff you can pull and what you can do. It's amazing.
Yeah, and I had reservations going into it, and but my coach is like, "Oh, you should check out Nick Best. He is like 55, maybe 57 or something like that,
Mhm.
and just an absolute monster. I mean, top 5 strongest man in the world. I've seen him at
Yeah.
Worlds and at Ultimate Strongman down in Dubai, and it's like, holy shit. Oh, well, I guess, and he's like, oh yeah, here's guys that started when they were 35 and now they're on the pro level. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Not that I don't care to ever be on a stage by any means, but it's like, oh, I can do this.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they're and I interviewed a lady, actually two moms, Sabrina from Blessed Home on the Range on Instagram, and um Mo Stronger, so Michelle Mo, who's in her, she's 52. Yes. And I mean, she's breaking records and powerlifting at her age. And she's got she's got visible abs. It's so when people say, oh, I don't want to lift heavy things, I think I'll break something, or I think, I can't really do this, blah, 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 list of excuses, the length of my arm. I'm like, look at all these people I've interviewed. Sabrina had 7 kids and still got into strongman and lifted during the week with 7 kids. Where's your excuse now?
But did you die?
But did you die?
And well, speaking of, I think the number one excuse is I don't have time. Well,
Yeah.
here you are. I mean, you run your own business, you're married, you do a podcast, and you're you're doing powerlifting. I mean, how do you balance all that out and keep your sanity at the same time?
So I'm not good at this yet. I do need to, I spend way too much time on my phone right now, and I need to find a balance between interacting with family and putting my phone down and being involved with the business. Right now, because we're in our slow season, it's a lot easier. But when things ramp up, I mean, the real, what it looks like on a day-to-day basis is spending a little of time looking for new podcast guests, backing that up in a backlog as much as possible, so I don't have to spend a whole lot of time doing new episodes and looking for new people. Spending the majority of the time on the business, both the marketing side, the content side, and also the selling side. And then liftings are early in the morning with a buddy of mine, and family time is in the evenings or during the day if I'm back and forth from the warehouse. That's nice about being an entrepreneur, is you kind of have your own flexibility and make your own hours. So I can be home where I wasn't able to be home before for lunch or in the afternoon. I can sometimes take care of the kids if my wife is out. And yeah, it looks really flexible. If this was crazy COVID traffic, I'd probably either be at the warehouse constantly 9 to 5, or I would have hired somebody by now because our volume is so crazy, and still have been able to spend some time with family. But yeah, I mean, that's what the week looks like. It's really not, if I added 1 or 2 other things on top of this, I'd probably lose my mind, but it's really not terrible right now. And
so you want to start bartending? Cool.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I want to spend even more of my time away from every.
Commute from North Carolina to Minnesota is not that bad, really.
Hey, there you go. Yeah, just a short hop, skip, and jump commute. Although it is crazy to me, I mentioned New York, and people come down here from like New York and New Jersey. I do not know how those guys are commuting that far into their job, especially post-COVID, realizing that I can work from home and spend 0 time in the car. Who is going back to the city? Who in their right mind? Anyway.
I feel like my life has kind of turned into brother where out there. I am conveniently 2 weeks away from everything.
Nice.
Go brother where art thou.
We should probably tell people what the podcast is. We glossed over it a handful of times by now, but so it's
Freedom Cast, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So Freedom Cast is dedicated to fitness icons and entrepreneurs who are trying to help others become active. That goal I've kept that fairly general so that I can interview people like Sean Baker, who's a doctor who is a big fan of the carnivore diet, or physical therapists and people like that. It's not just fitness influencers or people who are lifting. And that's been a lot of fun. That's actually probably the most enjoyable part of my job, aside from like doing some of the marketing content stuff. And yeah, so I do premiere weekly at noon on Saturdays, and it's every single week. I think I have missed 1 week since we started, and I'll probably miss a handful throughout the year. But the goal is to have 52 podcasts a year, and honestly, for that volume, there's thousands of people in the fitness business. I don't think I'm ever going to run out of people. I might run out of people locally, but nationally, no way, no way.
Yeah, that was when starting this show, that was my big concern of running out of material, running out of guests, because originally it was just supposed to be business owners, and then slowly kind of webbed out in different directions to the monster that I have created.
Well, you hung out with me is what kind of happened. You're like, I'm gonna do business owners. Is like bullshit. You're doing artists, you're doing musicians, you're doing brewers, you're doing everything. You want to tell people's cool stories about them doing their thing their way, like uniquely, which is actually how I pitch the show when I talk to people about it. You can't pigeonhole it into, hi, how did you start your accounting business?
Yeah.
Hello, what's it like to own a hardware store? Like, no, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
So how's it, like you said, you got 20 some episodes out, 23, did you say? Do you feel like you've evolved as the host?
Oh yeah, for sure. So there was one point at one point at which I thought I would need to continuously carry notes around because I was losing my place mentally and not able to ask questions mid-interview. That was awful. So you'll notice a couple of times during the early podcast, I would literally have a blank pause, sit there, gather my thoughts, panic, and then ask the next question, which is usually a terrible question. And that was me learning you need to have your crap together. And if the conversation's not flowing, keep it light mentally. If you panic, everything shuts down.
Yeah.
So for some guests who are high profile guests that I know I need to spend some time researching, I will write questions down, and it's particularly easy if it's a virtual interview. So in person, you'll notice with Gabby Burgles, or if you see the America's Strongest Woman. So if you see me in the chair beside her, I actually have a list of questions I have in my lap. And then I was able to branch out a couple of times and ask her some ad hoc questions based on things she was saying. But she was important. She was not, I'm not saying my guests are unimportant. She was very high profile. So I want to make sure I got that right. So I wrote down a few things. And then over Zoom, it's very easy because I can just glance to the side and reference it. But yeah, starting out was like with Garage Gym Lab, I had a panic attack, not a panic attack, but like, just like, oh my gosh, I forgot something. So as an interviewer, I've gotten much better at just holding a conversation and not really being taken aback. Like the less I know about somebody, to be perfectly honest, the better, because I'm not wowed or in awe of their list of accomplishments. And I would rather go in with a minimal information and just talk to them about their life and how they got started and what they're doing today. Because that's a conversation I can have. I very much take after Joe Rogan and his style and just free flowing conversation. And we can talk about whatever, starting out with the kind of businessy side and then going from there. But I've gotten a little bit more relaxed and able to kind of keep it light mentally so that I can queue up the next question. I'm not panicking so much about thinking about, oh, I need to, have something ready. Oh my gosh. And if there are those times, I'll make sure that I'm prepared for it. But I found I'm getting better at just asking questions and having the conversation flow naturally. There's some really cool people, dude. And some really, I cannot tell you the amount of times I have talked to business owners and they have said to me, I have nothing to talk about.
My favorite.
What? I'm like, so like Scott at the used gym store, the first time I approached him, he goes, I don't really know if I'm going to have anything to say. And I go, so you built this business into a mammoth, like nationally distributed, very well known locally, but 50,000 square foot warehouse with tons of equipment that you're grabbing from all over the United States. There's something there. So, and sure enough, we started talking, and he had story after story after story. The guy, do you know Juji Mufu?
Yeah.
Juji just walked into the store absolutely loves the place and now regularly mentions them in videos. I'm like, so where did that come from? So all these business owners that think they're so boring and have nothing to talk about, I find are the most fascinating people. And when you have a natural, free-flowing conversation that isn't so structured, that's why I like to keep as few notes as possible. I find those kind of stories just come to the top, and it's awesome. So, yeah, I mean, things have changed for sure, but I love the informality of the podcast, and I don't want to lose that because the structure kills me, man.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why the notes have become kind of my safety blanket.
Yeah.
And it's not as bad as it used to be in the beginning, especially. And I'd be going down to the studio, and it would be, at the time it was only a 15-minute drive. Now it's a 2-hour drive.
Oh gosh.
But I would crawl into my own head, and I would just be an absolute nervous wreck until once the mics get rolling, we start talking, then it's fine. But God, I hate that feeling. I'd say the worst was when Justin, you, I, and Ben sat down with Sean for the first time at the Ice House.
Oh, that's why
Green
I'm
room.
present. It's because you can't shut me up. And then when I start to hit those awkward silences, I'm like, so tell me about your dog. Like, yeah, no, you were nervous in that, but also got the absolute most disrespectful photo of me from Ben from that. I'm literally like I'm taking photos because I'm not interviewing, taking photos during it and having them sent directly to my phone. And I'm looking at my phone to make sure that everything's looking good for what I'm doing. And our other guy snapped a photo. So it looks like I'm sitting in this interview with a person I respect the shit of, just like, and naturally that's Gordon's cover photo and everything is it's the only photo of the three of us in frame, and I'm forever like, God damn it.
That's amazing. Oh my
yeah, no,
gosh.
you go to his website, that's literally the photo up is me looking at my phone looking like an asshole.
That's
That's
hilarious.
like one of the few good photos I have.
The best photo.
It's because I'm not the one that took it. Oh boy.
That's awesome.
So how much prep work do you do for an episode? Like between finding guests, scheduling, of course, and then what kind of prep are you doing?
Finding guests is a few seconds shooting a message over. Sometimes if I put some thought into it, I try to connect beforehand and interact with them a little bit on social. The actual prep work for the episode is as simple as setting up a Zoom invite in a week or so in advance to make sure that they have that on their calendars. And then I will look through their profile just to make sure I'm not totally missing something or insulting them by not knowing who they are, or not knowing something about them that I should know, I should say. I know who they are when I talk to them, but and then from there, that's it, because I want them to be able to talk about whatever they want to talk about, and I want to be able to ask them whatever I want to ask them about without having this predisposition to be like, oh, I already know that about you, we'll skip that question, because our audience doesn't know all these people either. With fitness influencers, it's a little bit easier. So for example, we're going to be interviewing tomorrow, we're going to be interviewing she's Beefcake Brina on Instagram, Sabrina McMullen on Sabrina McMullen on Instagram, Beefcake Brina on TikTok. And she's a bodybuilder female who I think is on the younger side. And I don't know that she has a great following on TikTok, but I don't know that she's as widely recognized as some other folks. And I think that's great because, I could ask her anything about her background and away we go. With some of these other guys, I have to be careful because like Sean Baker has been interviewed on the Joe Rogan podcast twice, and I believe twice. And I do not want to repeat a lot of the questions that Joe was asking him, because it's a very prominent podcast that a lot of people probably heard. Don't
take DMT beforehand, you'll be fine.
Oh my gosh, yeah, no, I know, right? Holy, should have asked him that just to get a kick out of him. Other people I don't like. I may not spend that much time on, but the high profile ones, I try not to be mundane. And so like I said, in terms of prepping, like that's when I'll have those questions prepped off to the side, and that might take me a few hours, but I'm pretty busy with a business and family and lifting and that kind of thing. So I don't have, if I was just doing the podcast, that'd be awesome, but I don't have a week to prep for things. So it's usually between a few minutes and maybe a couple of hours for somebody who's super well known to prep for those. And honestly, that has worked out pretty well. I probably could do a little bit more work for some guests, but I think as we grow as a podcast, I'm sure you know, like we'll have the convenient excuse that we're really big. We just want to know about you, and we don't need to, do as much research. I'm sure other people. Great example of this is, do you guys watch Hot Ones with Sean?
I've seen a couple.
Yeah,
I know the name.
he basically runs celebrities through a gauntlet of hot wings and asks them progressively more hilarious questions. And the amount of research that he spends time on in each guest is incredible. He's known for that. And he's known for digging deep into their profiles and asking them very pointed questions about things that are very obscure, in some cases that they didn't even know anybody knew about them. I'm not doing that. I don't have time, and most people, to be perfectly frank, don't care all that much. If at some point I do get to that point, I may end up hiring a third-party researcher, but I don't know. It just, I don't think anybody in the fitness community really expects anybody to do a whole heck of a lot of research before, unless we were discussing like some huge technical topic, like conjugate training. Yeah, then I need to do a ton of research before that because I have no idea what the heck I'm talking about. So that's how I view it.
So I'm just curious, how did you get started? Because I get asked this question a lot, and I go, well,
Yeah.
you go to a brewery and you find somebody with a podcast, you buy them a few beers, and then boom, you have a podcast a few months later. Doesn't really work.
Yeah. This is another Gary thing. I mentioned his name a lot, but he's influenced me to do a lot of stuff. He's like, do podcasts. I'm like, okay, I'll do a podcast. So I started doing a podcast. I had to figure out what it was, and you can see some of the early videos. I'm messing around with different layouts and stuff, and I'm still kind of tweaking that, but it was another marketing tool for Freedom Fitness equipment. If I can put that as a beginning and end cap to the episode, people will always remember that Freedom Fitness equipment sponsors this, and that's where you can find, good stuff. So it was an additional marketing tool. But I got started because Gary recommended it on a video that I watched somewhere. I'm sure he's recommended it 1,000 times to people, and people just don't listen. But and so I was just like, oh, well, what would it take? And then I talked to my brother-in-law, who was thinking about starting his own at the time. And he had a little like red, I don't have it here. It's like a red mic setup that you can plug 2 mics into. So I had to figure out that piece. And then I realized, oh, well, I can do a lot more of these if I do Zoom. So I started reaching out to people in different locations. And yeah, I just kept it super simple. And went from there. So I said, what can I do with a minimal amount of research, a minimal amount of time that will have the most maximum impact? And, sure enough, I got some really high profile guests. I went physically to an event, and I kind of used that to mention, like I'll use that as a pitch line occasionally to other people that I'm trying to get on the podcast. I don't know if you do the same thing, but I'll mention I've interviewed America's Strongest Woman or Brian Dobson or those guys, so that people know that we're not just another podcast that's kind of out of the ether. But it was very I don't know, very organically driven. I didn't really have any idea how I would get guests to begin with and what kind of setup I would be looking at. I just knew it needed to be simple, it needed to be efficient, and I needed to find out ways to produce it on a weekly. I figured weekly basis would probably be good enough to keep people's interest. So
yeah, I use my connection. I used to work at a brewery, and after, oh, hey, have this free beer. By the way, this Sunday, are you able to come on a podcast? Like, what? Why am I going on a podcast? It's not important. You just show up here at this time. It'll be fine.
yeah. You may have gathered by now that I love to talk. So that was a great outlet. And the first episode is just me. I could literally I again sound like an a-hole, but I could probably sit down every single podcast and just talk and talk and talk about something. I could probably find something to talk about. And that's fun for me. Like I like hearing people's stories. So again, going back to like, are you having fun with the business or are you just grinding? I mean, I like having fun. So that's an outlet for me is the podcast. And I know like the guys over at Massonomics, especially when they were first starting out, they didn't have a whole lot of guests. So occasionally like they'll just go back to the two of them talking or doing Q&A. And I'm sure at some point I'll probably end up doing that, but it won't be, I don't think it'll be for lack of guests. And for me, because I like talking to people so much, and I also just like talking in general, it's a great outlet for that. So it's my weekly dose of extroverted Ashton. So
But when you're getting started, did you plan on sticking with the fitness theme, if you will, because you already have, Freedom Fitness equipment? Like, hey, I want to do a podcast around it to help promote the business? Or did you have other ideas like, hey, I know you mentioned you're into board games, like I want to do a board game podcast or something like that?
Yeah, it's a great question. So when I was first coming up with the content strategy for Freedom Fitness as a brand, I was talking with a buddy of mine who's in digital marketing, who's been hugely instrumental in helping me direct and shape the content marketing side for the business. And shout out to Meal Prep on Fleek, by the way, on Instagram. So he encouraged me to create these pillars of content around the business. So fitness, home gyms, nutrition, and a couple of other ones. And from there, build out a piece of content that would answer questions related to those topics. Because you want to stay close to the core, which is fitness equipment in the business, so that it's not so all over the place. If you look at some of my early videos on TikTok, I'm talking about Bitcoin, and that was not the right move. And that's fine to talk about once you're an established brand. But if people don't know who you are starting out, it's going to really confuse not only them, but the algorithm that's trying to determine who you are and where your niche fits. So the podcast was started later once I had started to have more direction. And I asked him about that, like where should the content be going? He said, stay in the fitness and health space. So that's where that's why I decided we need to go with that for the podcast as well, so we can continue to be consistent. At some point, and again, this was his recommendation, you can start to branch out into different topics, but it's only once your audience knows you and knows what you're about. So at some point, I may be able to interview somebody like a Gary Vaynerchuk, who's in a completely different space, just on social media, generally speaking, and in marketing. But that'll be because I've established a brand and a reputation of interviewing high profile people or entrepreneurs. And it won't be because this is just specifically about health and fitness. So my goal was to just spread the word and stay in my space, because that was more appropriate to publicity. And it does drive, it just naturally makes sense for what we do to continue to drive sales and content. And I every little bit for a small business really helps. So that's why I decided to stay in that lane.
And last couple of questions for you.
Yeah.
If there's somebody out there listening and they want to start their own business, whether it's a fitness industry or otherwise, or even in this case, start their own podcast, I mean, what advice would you offer up for them?
Oh man. So I've told people this before, on the business side, if you have a dream, Mark Bell was really saying something interesting on a video recently. If you have a dream, it's hard to get started, but it's worth it. Not every dream is realistic. Not every dream is achievable. If you want to be a trillionaire by year 2, probably not going to happen. But if you have a dream and you can create realistic, achievable steps to get to that goal, go for it. I was locked into the 9 to 5 grind for 8 years. and I should have quit 3 to 4 years in. And I know that sounds really early to some people, but if this business had been around back then, leading up to COVID, I would have actually had the capital to invest a crap ton of money into inventory, and I wouldn't have been struggling with so much, where do I find all this stuff starting out? So that's what my encouragement would be to anybody who's got a big dream in mind and wants to start their own business but doesn't really know how, is create some achievable steps to get there. And you can always do it off to the side, especially if you have your main job, and do it and test it and test multiple things, like sample different things. Another Gary thing, like sample a bunch of different types of businesses. I tried electronic flips and reselling. I tried selling D&D dice outsourced from China. That was a 6-month fail. I tried all sorts of side hustles when I was in college. I was a lifeguard. I started selling, buying back books for cash, all sorts of stuff, and eventually settled on this. But it took me a bunch of fails or minor fails to make that happen. So if you have a 9-to-5 grind that you absolutely hate and you want to start a business, start it, experiment. And once you find something that hits, go for it. And if it takes off, quit your job. But don't, my recommendation would be against taking a massive leap, completely quitting and starting something you have no idea, has no proof points, and no, you haven't experimented with at all. If this is your first time getting into any sort of entrepreneurial endeavor at all, including just selling candy on the side of the street, you need to sell candy on the side of the street first, just to see how it feels. And then on the podcast side, that's super easy. Podcasts are proliferating like you wouldn't believe. So it's, you grab a mic, or you don't even need a mic, just the built-in microphone on your laptop, cold call or talk to anybody locally, depending on establish your topic, and then see if you can find some stuff locally. People locally love talking about themselves, love promoting their businesses and their things. And then as you gain more followers, start going after the bigger names, or try to get a big name up front and get yourself kickstarted and go for it. The thing that a lot of people don't do is go for it. They are scared of approaching somebody like Gabby or somebody like Adam from Garage and Lab, because, oh my gosh, they wouldn't even talk to me. I'm such a tiny little guy. But they will. And they're a lot nicer than you think. And a lot of these guys respond very well because maybe nobody's asked them before. Sean Donaldson from Morning Lifter interviewed Mark Bell, who's gigantic in the lifting industry. And he just asked him, I mean, he goes, I know this is going to surprise a lot of people and let a lot of people down, but I literally just asked him. And he said, yeah, Mark's the nicest guy in the world. If he hadn't said anything, he probably would have never had him on the podcast. So again, this goes back to my shoot your shot mentality about podcasts. But if you want to start a podcast, you can do it while you're working a 9-to-5. You are proof positive that can work. So just go for it. Shoot your shot. Put out 100 blasts. Don't be annoying. Don't piss people off. But it's really not that hard. And especially if you're calling from the local community, I mean, tons and tons of people are going to be willing to talk to you.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you again for coming on the show, man. Really appreciate it. Most importantly, where can folks find you on the social media and on the web, and of course, find the podcast?
Sure. So Freedomcast by Freedom Fitness Equipment is anywhere you can find podcasts: Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts. freedomfitnessequipment.com is where you can find our website. We ship fitness, used and new fitness equipment nationally, and you can also do pick up locally for free. If you want to find us on social, we're at Instagram, Freedom Fitness Equipment 1. I had an issue with them banning me, so for reasons that I will not get into here, but were not warranted. And so we had to create that separate account with the 1 at the end. Anywhere else, any other social site is Freedom Fitness Equipment. So TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, you can find us there. And yeah, by the way, this has been freaking awesome. And if you ever want to have me back as a guest, I am more than happy to come back on. So you guys are doing, this was a blast.
Well, thank you, man. I appreciate it. And
Yeah.
thank you everyone for joining on the live stream. Otherwise, we will catch you next time.
Sounds good. See you guys.